Hey, what's up, guys? Chris Fluck here. This is Chris Fluck Podcast, episode 4. Today, we're taking it's a question and answer segment. So we opened it up. Had people ask me a bunch of questions this week, or things that came up in the gym, things that came up kind of in outside life and my personal life. And we're going to try to cover it here as best we can. Now, it's a wide range of topics. So we're going to dive in here now and try to cover these in the next 60 minutes. So the first one here, somebody that's fairly new coming in here that's working out. She works in a line of business where she does a lot of written copy for websites and sells a lot of products. And, one thing that she wanted to know is, like, when she first went to the website, I asked for her feedback a little bit on, what she thought, this and that and the other thing. And she's like, you really need to get out there, like, what you do and why you do the certain things that you do. So for this question here, I have a gym here in Bethlehem. It's called Brickhouse Strength. We're in Pennsylvania in the Northeast. And so, this has been like my 10th year kind of working with people as a personal trainer or a coach. I spent some time coaching football and wrestling. So, like, over the years, you just read a ton of books and your whole mentality changes with experience and what you read and even who you hang out with. So the whole process, like we kind of covered with Frank in a previous episode, it started at an LA Fitness. And back in those days, I was reading books by this guy, Mark Verstegen, Core Performance. And now now his company's name is Exos. This was the first guy that really kind of started doing functional training, a lot of different stuff on one leg, using bands, things of that nature, and like total body workouts each time, working in different planes of motion, so forward, sideways, reverse, training the core in different ways. This was all new to me. This is like 2007-ish. So I go from those type of books there. I started putting those programs in. Then the next book that was a big game changer was this Robert Dos Remedios book called Power Training. This book, what it taught me was, it taught me to a certain extent. I don't want to say the workouts that we do here are a template, but they do tend to follow a certain pattern in the sense that, so in the Dos Remedios book, he had, every day you're going to push this way and push overhead. You're going to pull this way and you're going to pull overhead. So you're going to do a squat. You're going to do something for the back of your legs. You're going to do something explosive. You're going to do something rotational for your core, and you're going to do a bridge or a plank of some sort. So I started doing that type of stuff, and it ended up being 9 or 10 exercises every session. They were taking over an hour, but that started planting the seed that, there's like this whole thing where as long as it's kind of the same but different approach where you could push this way a bunch of different ways, whether it's push-ups, dumbbell bench press, incline bench press. You could push overhead with one weight, 2 weights. You could use your legs and do a push press. You could do a squat and a press. All of this all falls in the same category, and then each workout or whatever you're feeling, whatever your goals are, you just kind of sub it out. So that kind of introduced me to a whole other line of thought. The first couple books, it was training, just to be a little bit more functional, moving your body better. It's getting rid of the machines, it's getting rid of the bench press and all the time, and it's starting to do some more functional things, what they were calling it back in those days. So trained, and then we just started working, and like I said, these were like 10 exercises. The workouts were taking me over an hour. At that time, I'm in like my early to mid 20s. I had the energy to do it, but then eventually you start working with clients, and you're like, I can't put these people through these workouts because then we're going to rush stuff. We might cut the warm up out, which in the long run might end up injuring somebody, or somebody might just might not feel great, and they might not be able to get a great workout in because they didn't ramp it up and get their body warmed up to begin with. So, started reading these other books, Dan John. He kind of really cut things down for me. So that Dos Remedios template had, was this big, and it was pushing and pulling in all these different directions. Dan John's books really kind of cut it in half and said, each session, you should do something where you're hinging at your hips. So something that's primarily working the backside of your legs, like your glutes and your hamstrings. You should do a squat every day. The squat could be a goblet squat, could be a back squat, could be a split squat with one foot out in front of the other. Either way, they're squats. You should push every day. You should pull every day. You don't have to push in this direction and push in this direction. You could just do one push a day, really focus on that. And then maybe the next day when you're in the gym, you do another push. And then you do your pull. And then he had these carries, which was a new concept that I didn't really put into my training. It's sled pushes. It's carrying weights around. We're talking farmers walks. You saw the world's strongest man competitions. They're picking up big stones, bear hugging them, carrying them distance. All these things are teaching you is kind of how to brace the core and being able to move loads around, because every day in life, you're probably carrying stuff around. You go to the grocery store, you're carrying bags out. You have a baby like I have right now. I got a 10-month-old who's like 27, 30 pounds. You got her in one arm and squeezing her and holding her and carrying her around. You can simulate that stuff by holding a dumbbell here, carrying a kettlebell here. Some of the stuff that you do in everyday life, you could train that a little bit in the gym, get a little bit stronger, get a little bit more comfortable carrying stuff around or pushing sleds. And then that's just going to translate and hopefully keep you healthier and keep your day-to-day activities, keep them easier, really, and make you feel better while you're doing them. So the Dan John stuff got in here. So now that I'm in here with this gym, I'm putting these group workouts together, and this is really what the question was about. It's like, why do you do, you have this stuff on your website, push, pull, squat, hinge, whatever. Why do you do that stuff? We want to train the whole body like almost every session you're in here. We want to squat a little bit every day. We want to hinge a little bit every day. So we're going to do that, and we're going to do it at different intensities and different levels each day. One day might be heavier weights. The next day might be just holding a push-up position plank, which isn't actively moving anything, but it's training those pushing muscles. So you could do like a heavy, say, bench press one day, and then on a Wednesday, you're doing a push-up plank, or you're doing a different version of a push-up position plank, and that's still kind of a press, a push. So each day we're going to try to train these things. We're going to do a squat every day, whether it's in the warm-ups with no weight or whether it's with, a couple 100 pounds on your back. So anyway, we're going to put you through these total moves, these full range of motion moves, just because it's what you're going to do in everyday life. You're going to have to bend over to pick stuff. You're going to hinge over at your hips to pick something up, or you're going to do it in a safe and efficient way where you're not going to throw your back out. You're going to be carrying stuff around. We just want you to be as healthy and as functional, there's that word again, as possible. So we want you to feel good in your everyday life. So Denise, I hope we got you covered on that one there. The next question, I'm going with Lauren, high school girl that comes in here. She saw another girl in here lifting, and she said, when do we back squat? So typically, I don't do it too often. So I coached football for 7 years. I think I've talked about that in the past. And the goal of that program when I was working with these high school kids was to try to get them just to display a little bit more power. In order to do that, I would do some of the Olympic lifts, like a hang clean. So if you don't know what it is, just kind of look it up. It's a total body move. You start with the bar kind of right above the knees, saying you'll catch it in this up position here. That position here, I like to practice a lot from, so we did tons of front squats. So for me, training with athletes, I'm a big proponent of the front squat because it really kind of works the midsection here, because you really have to brace, because you got a big, heavy load kind of right here across your chest, and it kind of trains the front of your muscles here. In my opinion, some of these are those sprinting muscles that really they kind of show up in sport. So we have a heavy load here. The front squat kind of teaches you to go down to full depth. The back squat, my issues, I don't really have any. I think it's safer to do a front squat, and I think high school kids, they typically don't like them, but it forces them to full range of motion. I think it's safer because the load's a little bit lighter, so it's less chance of injury. And then the front squat, in my opinion, helps translate into a better hang clean or a power clean. So that's why I do the front squat. So when it comes to the back squat, that is going to be coming down the road when the person is a little bit more experienced. So that first, say you come in here, it doesn't really matter how old you are or if you're going to college or you're going to high school. We're probably going to hammer a bunch of goblet squats right off the bat. So the goblet squat is holding the weight in here. We're hitting deep squats up and down. Next step, we're going front squats. Probably after that, maybe some back squats. So there's a certain hierarchy where it's like you want to kind of master one level before moving to the next level. And that's just kind of my approach on a lot of different things. There's different tiers, different hierarchies. And instead of, say you're a kid that's going to college and you have zero training experience, your training age is 0. If there's somebody else that has been strength training since they were 13, when they go to college, their training age is 4 or 5 years old. They have all these moves and motions established already that they could probably go right into college and do some of these more advanced lifts like the back squat. But that person who's the same age that has zero training experience, their training age is 0, I think it's rushing it too much, and they don't have that foundation built, and they don't have the foundation planted where, they need to do those goblet squats. They need to do those front squats just to teach them what full depth is, what full range of motion is, how to kind of brace the midsection before they start advancing to throwing heavier loads on their back and then potentially jacking up their spine, which is going to take them off the playing field or, sending them to the hospital for a significant back injury. So that's that. I mean, we want to kind of progress things. We want to try to just lay the foundation early. And I tend to, with my coaching, probably hang out a little bit too long in a certain zone. Instead, like I really slow play and slow cook everything. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad, I think. But the goal is to keep people healthy. The goal is to teach the foundational moves, do it in a safe and efficient manner, and then eventually maybe we could get to some of those more advanced lifts. So that's my thoughts on some of these exercises like the back squat and some of these other more advanced lifts. So the next question that we have here is from this young kid that comes in, a 10-year-old. He plays, he wrestles, plays football, plays baseball. He's probably involved in all these other sports. And if you've been around youth sports at all, it's hard to find good coaches. So you'll go to some games, and it's usually some dads volunteering because they need the help. You're not going to be getting these like high caliber coaches down there helping. You might in some cases, but for the most part, it's just hard to find people. And you're getting people that might not have even played a sport before. They might not have even played football. Now they're coaching football because the son's team needed help, or the daughter's team if she plays. So the kid was basically like, hey, my coach said this is the best way to move. We're doing an agility drill. He said this is the best way for me to change direction. Is he right? So number one, I'm probably not going to throw anybody under the bus at all. So I asked him who told him that, whatever, and it was a coach. And I was like, there's always going to be multiple ways to do things. And sometimes when it comes down to it, when you're coaching athletes, one athlete might be faster, more efficient with one technique, and then somebody the same age on the same team playing the same position just might be a little bit quicker with a different technique. So we're changing directions. One of them involved just planting your foot, totally decelerating your body, and then re-accelerating in the other direction. The other option, running your feet pretty fast and then sprinting forward. So one of them's keeping the feet moving and changing direction. The other one is putting the whole body coming to a complete stop and then re-accelerating and sprinting out of there. So basically what I told them, back in the day when I was coaching high school and football, my first couple of years, I would go and see these college coaches at these clinics. And college coaches are they're all black and white for the most part. There is no middle ground with these guys. So they teach it one way and that's it, and there's no discussion. They only have so many hours in the day to practice, so they don't want to waste time explaining things or doing different techniques for different kids. It's like, we're doing it this way and that's that. So this even goes back to when I would watch a lot of NFL games. I talked about Tony Dungy in here. The Indianapolis Colts, when they would play with some of their great wide receivers, guys like Marvin Harrison, Reggie Wayne, Hall of Fame caliber players. One guy always played on the right side on the outside, furthest away. Another guy played on the left side always. They didn't even want to mess with that person's technique. They wanted that person to get as many reps as possible from one side. They didn't want to cut reps and get practice from the left side and the right side. They just wanted that person to become a master from the left side. Now, this is higher level stuff. This kid's playing youth sports. He asked me, is this right? I didn't want to say yes or no, but basically what I said is over the course of his career, granted, remember, this kid's 10. So he's going to have one coach when he's 10 telling him one thing, when he's 13 telling him a different thing, 15 telling him a different thing, 17, whatever. You get the idea. So basically what we just talked about is like, hey, different people are going to tell you different things, and we just need you to kind of just be as efficient and be as good as whatever you're being coached. And then eventually over time, you're going to find out what works for you, and you're going to go with that. So when you're working with a large group of kids, and if you don't have a lot of practice time, you have two coaches. And then later in my coaching career, I just went to the point where it's like, I only got this group of kids. I got 8 kids here. We got 6 minutes to do drills, and I want you to do this one. We're going to backpedal, and then you're going to redirect and go this way. Whatever's the quickest for you to get there, I'm cool with that, because we only have 6 minutes and we got to move through it. So, there's two trains of thought. You make kids do things the way you want to do them as a coach, maybe a little bit of ego involved in that, or you just kind of let those kids, let those athletes, let the kids, let their bodies figure things out themselves. And I think in the long run, that might be a little bit better for them, especially when they're younger. Just kind of open it up to them, tell them to feel it out, practice some different techniques, see what works for them, see what doesn't work, and then kind of go from there. So, granted, that's a terrible, that's total gray area on my end, but that's kind of how I operate when I'm working with kids. It's like, you only have so much time with them that you just got to do what's best for them in that moment there, and then the more you work with them, the more you kind of fine tune some things. But you just want them to be quick, you want them to be efficient, and you want to be able to do this stuff good enough. And then eventually, when you're training age, like I talked about earlier, once that goes up and once you get more experience, then you could start we'll focus on becoming great and excellent and perfect with all the stuff. But it's like, let's get you moving to that good enough level, all right, where you're getting that B+, A- on your movements. And then from there, later down the road, we could fine-tune some stuff, all right? So that is that. Next question. Got some email this week. So this one's coming from Danielle. So Danielle, just to tell a little bit of story, I think it was 2 summers ago now. She came in here, never worked out a day in her life, just got done with college or was finishing up college, never really worked out. So coming in, had some asymmetries from one side to the other side, right? She's right-handed. Right side was able to do some, push a lot more weight around than the left side. You see that asymmetry. We kind of closed the gap on that, right? Over the course of the year, she closed the gap on it because she's been coming in crazy consistent. So that was one thing. She had some tremendous progress from day 0 to day 365. That year 1, everything was going good. Now, I'll throw some arbitrary kind of just percentages at you here. Don't quote me on these things, but if you've never worked out a day in your life, you might only be physically capable of doing like 20% of what your body is capable of, because you've never trained it and never tried to prepare it to reach like its ultimate potential. So, at day 0, you're probably only doing like a 20-25% of what you can accomplish. Over the course of that first year, you might be able to do like 50 or 60% of what you could accomplish. The more you work out, the smaller that percentage increase is going to get. So you might make a 25-30% jump in year 1. Year 2 it might be 10%. Once you get to year 10, year 15, year 20, it's like if you make a 5-pound gain on any of your lifts, that's like incredible. That's like reason to celebrate. So the more experience you get in the weight room, the less the less light, you're just not going to be hitting those huge strides like you did it when you're a beginner, when you're a novice. That's just kind of how it goes. So when that happens, you get to that point where you have 2 choices, and it's just like everything else. You're going to kind of figure out a way to grind it out and just keep going forward, or you're going to, just because the workouts are getting stale or bored, or you're going to try to look for something else. So it's basically going to come down to, you're going to have to reevaluate where you are, what your goals are, and what you want to accomplish. When you've never worked out before, pressing a weight overhead, it's going to feel like the hardest thing you've ever done, right? Let's say you're using 25 pounds. After that year 1, if you're only, you have to find a weight that is going to give you that same effect that you had with that 25 pounds, but it might be with a 35 or 40 or 45 pounder. So you got to try to find that same effect that you had. You got to keep kind of cranking up the intensity on all these different things. And that is the way that you're going to continue to progress and avoid those that stagnation point or that plateau where you don't make progress. So you have to keep that in mind. You have to set some goals. You have to kind of look in the mirror and ask yourself, am I working as hard as I could be on some certain things? That's going to be important. If you don't want to skip out on things, you don't want to not push it to the limit. Say you want things to be a 9 out of 10. Don't just do it at 6 all the time and kind of do that for months on end. You just got to keep kind of pushing it and keep pushing it forward. So, eventually over time, it's like you're just going to be beating your head into the wall and the progress is going to stagnate. You just got to figure out ways to add some different things to your routine. Maybe look at your recovery. Are you getting enough sleep? Are you actively, trying to recover properly with nutrition? All of that stuff there. So I had a bunch of stuff here figured out, but I think I covered it all. So to avoid stagnation, vary the workouts, set some goals, make sure you're challenging yourself with every workout, and keep getting after it, keep grinding away. Now, this next question I just kind of had on the way home. We had about a 90-minute ride, and I was talking to Marisa, and she was telling me about this when she first started, working out. And this is kind of how we first met. Her big thing was she enjoyed running so much, and she was like, why was I able to get faster without actually running? So this is kind of a tricky one in the sense that there's a lot of explaining going on here, but whether you're sprinting, going 100%, or you're going like out for a nice cruise, a nice jog, which is like 50, 60% speed, boosting strength in your body is going to help you get faster when you're running. So the goal is going to be to get your strength up, but not to a point where it's going to start affecting your body type. So you want to keep your body weight the same, but you want to get your strength up, right? Because then you're going to be able to put more force out. So why is force important? Every time you kind of, there's two reasons force is important. One of them is to absorb force. So, we talked about this before. Every time that you take a step when you're jogging, every time you land, we're talking anywhere from like 5 to 9 times your body weight is kind of absorbed into those joints. So if my leg is stronger, I'm going to be able to absorb that shock a little bit better. And then if I'm able to absorb that shock a little bit better, I'm able to redirect it out in the other direction, which is going to make me a little bit faster. So it's kind of like absorbing and then reaccelerating. It's kind of like a spring, if you could kind of picture that, kind of getting pushed down and then opening up. So getting improved strength in the lower body is going to help us with force absorption. And then it's also going to help us with force application, which is output, really driving off of that leg and maybe even be able to cover a little bit more distance with each stride just based off my power output. So it's like, every action has an equal and opposite reaction. If you're putting more force down into the ground back, it's going to just give you more force coming out this way. So that was one thing too with the running is, which is why it's important here. And the same thing happened. I'm kind of going to do 2 questions in one here. Working with a high school girls lacrosse team, they're like, what's better, cardio or strength training for sport? And I'm like trying to explain this in like a 2-minute stretch here without going into too much detail. When you're playing your sport, you could use that for conditioning. I don't think you want to try to do cardio training in the gym on a treadmill and then think that that's going to apply to your sport and going to help you out. It might a little bit here, but what we wanted to do, and this goes back to the question that Marisa had a few years back, was in the weight room, we're going to focus on building strength so that when you do go out and do some of your activities, whether it's running, whether it's changing direction, or jumping for that matter, we want to focus on those qualities in the weight room so we don't have to go out there and just keep pounding the pavement. So you could get in great condition for your sport if you just play your sport 4 hours a day. But over time, you're just probably going to beat yourself up to a point where you're going to have to miss a practice, where you're not going to be able to perform to your full potential because you have an achy knee, achy ankle, and you might start deteriorating a little bit physically. Like constantly putting yourself in a cardiovascular state might end up starting to wither away some of the important things that your body needs, like lean muscle. And it might beat up some of your bone density too, where you see some people get some stress fractures because they pound the pavement too much. So force application there, and also just not overdoing it. You could become a better runner by strength training and just trying to get your overall body stronger without becoming like, fit. You don't want to gain 15 pounds of muscle mass. You want to stay at the same, relatively speaking. And because force, again, like I was saying, is mass times acceleration. So if your mass goes up and your acceleration stays the same, you're going to be slower. But if your mass stays the same and your acceleration gets faster, then you're going to be faster. So it's just kind of mathematics and doing different equations there. But if you want to become faster outside, get really efficient with your training. Don't beat your body up, and then spend some time in the weight room trying to get that lower body strength up. Single legs, basically doing single leg strength activities, and also 2-legged, activities like a squat, a deadlift, things of that nature. Because all that is just going to help you help your force number, and it's going to help you. Your force application is going to be better. So you want to get better out on the field, or you want to become a better runner, spend some time in the weight room and get your strength up, all right? Next question, Susan, longtime client of mine. She's just kind of dove into precision nutrition cert about a year ago, and they put out a bunch of great content. But her question, in a nutshell here, basically was, what do I think about quick weight loss diets? In short, I don't do them, so I'm definitely not a big fan of them. Do I think, is there a certain time or a certain place for it? I think there could be with some people, but I don't want to do them, all the time. So if you're doing these 21-day challenges, like that might be cool to do once or twice a year, but not something that you want to sustain for the long haul, because I think they might put you at such a, calorie deficit that it could cause some harm. So, you could go on these quick weight loss diets, 1,200 calories a day, and all this other stuff, but over time your body's just not going to function to its full capabilities. And this is something I'm going to touch on with a later question too, but if you're constantly at these undernourished states over time, your endocrine system, your hormonal responses, metabolism, all those things, they're going to get jacked up, and your body's just not going to be able to, it's just not going to be efficient. So, you're going to be eating on these 1,200 calorie diets. And just like I was talking about with Danielle's question about getting this progress, you're going to get great progress right off the bat, but then you're going to stagnate because your body's going to be getting accustomed to what it's doing. And it's going to be in a certain mode where it's just not going to burn the way that it did before. It's going to try to preserve, and it's not going to burn. So, you're going to do yourself some harm over time. So maybe if you mix these quick diets in, maybe once or twice a year where you really want to ramp it up and challenge yourself, that might be okay. But to do it over the long haul, I think you're going to do more damage. So, but that's almost, I think even Susan asked, it's almost like a societal question where it just kind of comes down to why don't people want to put in the work. It's going to be a long-term thing, a patient thing. And I was just talking to my boy here, Chris Fiegel, the man that's producing this show. We're just talking about different ideas for business, and I think it kind of applies in here where it's like we just got to be super patient and try a bunch of different things. Hopefully you can kind of get the ball rolling in the right direction. And, I think that's more sustainable than doing these big-time crash diets where we get these huge results, then the results stop, then we get upset, then we gain more weight back than we had initially on, and then we just do this whole cycle where you lose 20, gain 25, get upset with yourself, be depressed, and then you go on the next diet where you're going to drop 20 again, and then you're going to gain 27 back or whatever. So anyway, it's a net gain over time. So what do I think about the quick weight loss diets? I think people need to shift their mindset. I think they need to be in it for the long haul. 1 pound a week is probably cool for a certain amount of time. If you start losing 7 to 10 pounds a week, might be a little bit too much. All right. So be in it for the long haul. Understand that if you want to be successful, it's going to be those slow weight loss It's going to be the reduction in weight over a slower, longer period of time than that rapid weight loss. So even doing something as little as using 5% of your body weight, which, if you weigh 200 pounds, that's 10 pounds. If you lose 10 pounds, life's going to get a lot easier for you. So if you kind of set yourself up with some smaller goals where it's like, hey, I'm going to lose 5% of my body weight over 3 months, and I want to hold that weight. I want to maintain that weight, because usually when the diets happen and you lose a lot of weight, you're going to gain back more, right? So if you say I'm going to lose 5% and then just hold the line, if you hold the line, you're doing better than 80% of the people because they're probably gaining it back. So lose 5%. Hold the line, get comfortable where you're at, and then maybe set that next goal. Well, hey, I think I could do another 5%. Then eventually you might be able to get yourself down to a reasonable weight loss. So, the quick fix strategy, we're talking long-term sustainability, probably not going to work. If you want to be that person with the whiteboard at your gym, I lost 17 pounds in 7 days. You could be that person. But then revisit yourself in a couple months and see if you still have that 17 pounds off or if it came back on. So just depends on what you're trying to accomplish. Weight loss quick, probably not a great idea for the long term. Now, we're going into Net, my friend in California, who is pretty awesome, but we asked for questions and she gave me 17 sentences that, I don't know what it was. She was kind of looking for suggestions. So basically, if I had to sum this up, aging, potential for injuries, not feeling as fit as she used to feel, and how to handle all of this. What is the best way to do it? I think she said she's working out. She's getting her yoga on. She's getting TRX in 3 times a week. There might be another day of strength training in there. She's hiking. I remember that. I mean, this is serious stuff here. She's been killing it for a while, but she's starting to realize that, like, hey, it's almost kind of in that same thing with the Danielle question, a little bit of stagnation going on there, a little bit of concern about, long term. She's doing a lot of work, but it's not really getting her the results that she wants. So let's just say, I know she lives out there in sunny California, so she's not dealing with the Northeast like we are here, where it's freezing out, 20-something degrees. Got a little snow out here. So with that being said, outside activities, I think that's one way that you could kind of increase her concern too was her cardiovascular health. She wasn't getting, she just felt like her cardiovascular stuff, she needed running for that. Another guy that comes in here in the morning, he's, patting his belly. He's like, the only way I could get rid of this is by running. Nanette's concern is running is kind of making her joints hurt, which is a fair concern because I don't know if you want to be pounding the pavement for the rest of your life. I think that's when you're probably going to get hurt. So, number one, try to find out ways to train the cardiovascular system without hurting your body. So, I think doing some long, slow duration activities like hiking, which she's already doing, yoga, she's already doing that. Maybe going out for a long walk now because in California, I know the temperatures are nice. Right now in this weather, we can't really do that in the Northeast, so it might be finding a pool to go to or just maybe going to cruise around somewhere in a mall or indoors or something like that. But getting your non-exercise activities up, I think is going to help burn calories. So, we have 3 ways to burn calories, really. 3 big ways are going to be exercise, non-exercise activities, and then the thermic effect of food, which is like how much energy it takes for you to digest the food that you're eating. That's a small bundle. I think that the physical activity stuff is what everybody focuses on. But if you go sit around for the rest of the day, which I'm not saying Nanette you're doing that, I know you're active, but those non-exercise activities it could be a potential game changer if you are stagnating. So with that being said, if let's just say you had ample amount of time, you're not getting the results that you want physically, to get the cardiovascular system going, maybe some longer, slow duration stuff, hiking up hills, getting your heart rate to a certain point. Even like in a sauna, you could get your heart rate elevated. Your cardiovascular system could get some training without really pounding your body. So those are 2 ways that you can. You could, I guess you could swim as well. Like I said, swim, hike, walk, and even some sauna use could potentially help. With the workout situation you got there, cardiovascular training, instead of doing, certain things, like I was saying with the hills, interval training, if you could do that maybe twice a week or if you find a gym where you have a rowing machine, you learn how to use maybe some kettlebells or doing some different things that are more interval focused of 30 seconds on, 30 seconds off for a certain period of time, 8 to 12 minutes, take a break, maybe do it again. You could train your cardiovascular system that way without your feet having to leave the ground. Kettlebell swings, rope waves, rower, just a ton of stuff. Even just doing normal exercises, some body weight exercises that you might already be doing. Do them on a timer where you're keeping your rest short so that your heart rate stays elevated. So every minute on the minute for 20 minutes you're going to perform a challenging exercise. That could be a way that you could change up your strength training and get your cardiovascular system in. So before I jump around too much here, we're talking the slow cardio stuff. Then for the cardiovascular system, we're talking intervals. With the strength training stuff, like I was just saying, put yourself on the clock. I've started tinkering with these workouts myself here, and we're doing 3 sets of 8 of an exercise. And if you do it at a tough weight, at a pretty challenging weight, and you're only allowing yourself 1 minute rest in between, it gets pretty tough. So, I've been getting sore from this stuff, just doing 3 sets of 8 of some of these lifts, and I'm like, Jesus, I'm starting to realize how long I was resting before, and it was just way too long. So if you feel that your cardiovascular system is not where you want it to be, you could work that in the weight room too. Put yourself on the timer. Every minute on the minute, do an exercise. Do it for however long you want. And I think you're going to get your heart rate elevated and you're going to get some results that way. Now, I think that the other huge important part is finding some tweaks, cleaning up your nutrition a little bit. So maybe doing a food journal. Maybe you start writing down what you're eating and you're going to realize that, holy crap, I am eating way too much. With me personally, I'm eating like 1,000 calories of nuts a day, and I'm like, I bet if I quit eating nuts, I would probably lose some serious weight here. But I didn't really realize until I wrote down what the heck I was eating. Same with, I think, almost everybody else. So if you start food journaling, if you start tracking what you're eating, you might realize like, hey, I'm snacking a little too much, or hey, I need to, maybe I need to not eat 2 handfuls of something, maybe just 1 handful. That's one thing that I think helps a lot of people kind of get back on track. So the food journal. And then obviously you want to plan your meals out. Yeah, then there's the whole prep and cooking, whatever. But I think you really take a hard look at what you're doing nutrition-wise, and you're going to be able to get some positive results in the term and like the aesthetic part of it, how you look. And then if you incorporate some of the interval stuff with your training, or if you crank up the intensity with your strength training work and work at a faster pace, you're going to get some cardiovascular results. Combine that with some of those long, slow duration stuff like long walks. Maybe you take your husband Steve out, hit the streets a little bit for a nice walk. And then obviously, you do want to do some direct core training. So just to kind of keep, just to kind of focus on the physique a little bit, you get the direct core work here, with different planks, things of that nature to just kind of work the trunk area. I think that seems to give people positive results. So if you have all the time in the world and you're wondering, why can't I make some exercise or some overall improvements, you're going to food journal. You're going to warm up before every workout. I would recommend strength training 3 times a week. It could be on those same days or on different days. Interval training twice a week. Train your core. If something's hurting, figure out a way to fix it so that these corrective exercises, because then that way you could continue to work out without having to take time off to recover because of injuries or soreness. And then lastly, slow cardio or fun activities. Maybe you go to a dance class, you got your yoga going on, any other activity you want to do, go out hiking, swimming, whatever it may be. So that's that. I mean, if you have all the time in the world, that's the way that I would go about doing things. Get your food right, challenge yourself when you work out, train the cardiovascular system in different ways, and I think you should probably see some positive results. So that's that one there. Next one is from a guy that I know by the name of Chris. He said, how do I get a better night's rest? Guy's been struggling, man. Last week, I think he told me how many hours of sleep? Total? 5 a night. So 5 hours a night, roughly. It's not enough. So Matthew Walker, I didn't get to read his book. Heard him on a Joe Rogan podcast. He's saying 7-hour minimum. 7 to 9 hours is what he wants. So he started talking about, too, just like your overall ability to get stuff done. If you're under that 7-hour mark, there's huge decrement. So I'm not surprised that there was, even with this individual, getting five hours of rest. He was also sick for a little bit of that time, or actually a good chunk of that time. So the body's not going to be able to produce, you're not going to have a great output, say, in the weight room. Your work might start to take a hit too. Immune system was taking a beating a little bit there as well. So not sleeping, sickness, I think there's probably a positive correlation there. How would I recommend getting a better night's rest? So I've been doing this for a while now that I even forget some of the ideas that I've tried before, but I've tried like 100 things probably, and I kind of got myself into a nice routine now. This is after long years of trial and error, so you could skip all that trial and error and just maybe try some of these out, and hopefully they could help you out. Hot shower every night. Some sort of sleepy time tea. I like Yogi's tea, which is caramel. Soothing caramel bedtime, I think is what it's called. That's usually my go-to, but I think, there's probably some chamomile stuff. I'm actually trying one now that is CBD chamomile combo, which sounds deadly, but I don't know. I've been kind of sleeping. I had a gift card for a store in town, so I picked it up there just to see how my sleep went with that. I think it's working pretty well. So anyway, we're talking hot showers. We're talking tea, some sort of nighttime tea that's going to help unwind. One part of his question that he asked was, the electronic device stuff, which in my mind, I've kind of eliminated it. And then I brought it back and I was reading my Kindle at night. Just like 2 weeks ago, I was like, once I go to bed, I'm shutting it down. I'm done. Because I'm getting up pretty early to come into the gym because I start, around 5 a.m. And I'm like, if I could get to bed 10 or 15 minutes earlier by putting the Kindle down, then it's worth it in my opinion, because every kind of minute counts. So nighttime routine, hot shower, tea, probably no electronics. Might do a little bit of work, but if I do, it's going to be like an hour before I try to go to bed. Read a hardcover book is cool, but, say you're with somebody that, whatever. You can't have the lights on in bed, so maybe you do that downstairs just to kind of unwind. I typically go tea first. Supplements, forgot about these. zinc and magnesium, add those to the mix. I take some krill oil. What else? That's it. Oh, vitamin D. I take those at night too, and I don't even know if they're helping at all. I know the zinc and magnesium could potentially help with sleep, but I just take all the vitamins at night kind of as part of my little routine there. Hot shower, supplements, hot tea, right? While I'm drinking my tea, I'm unwinding. Maybe read a book then, like a hard copy of a book, kind of help you unwind. And then after that stuff, that's when I get my shower. And sorry, I got a little backwards there. But yeah, the hot shower's coming after I drink my tea. Why? Don't know. Just like maybe so I don't want to drink tea before I go to bed and have to wake up at midnight to go to the bathroom. I don't know what my thoughts are. But tea, supplements, read while that's going on, and then take a hot shower, hopefully hit the bed. Now, removing the electronic stimulus. That's a big one. We just got rid of cable because we weren't really watching it enough. And there's only so many hours in the day that we were like, I don't think we need the TV. Sometimes now, especially with the baby situation we got going on here, this little one, he goes to bed early, so we tend to go to bed early because she wakes up early. So we're not really watching TV at night. We occasionally watch some things like The Marvelous Miss Maisel, get a little laugh in before bedtime. But, we really try not to watch television because I swear that my sleep gets affected even if I watch a show like that. Like, I'm just up then for a little bit more, and it's weird. So I don't even like doing it. I do it because it's funny and it's entertaining and it's an opportunity for me and Marisa to spend some time together while the baby's sleeping. But I think it definitely affects me. And if I were to watch a football game or anything that's like, high energy, something suspenseful before bed, I don't think I'm going to bed for a while. When I used to coach high school football, we'd get home from games on a Friday night at, 11 o'clock. And I'm like not going to bed till after midnight probably, just because of like all the ups and downs of a game. Or you kind of get that even if you're watching a game on television. But anyway, you're coaching a game and there's like all this stuff going on. People are hooting and hollering. Kids are excited. You're like, we won or you lost. Brain's going on overdrive because you just lost and you're like so annoyed and frustrated. That's keeping you up at night. I don't do this personally, but other people talked about like a brain dump situation where you just put some stuff down on the piece of paper. Maybe instead of thinking about what you have to do tomorrow, make a list of like 7 things that are like, hey, these are the 7 things I need to get done this week. And then underneath those 7, just jot down all these other ideas you have. Obviously, you want to prioritize, but those 7, they got to get done. Now, if something becomes more important and you need to maybe replace it, but just be like, don't have your to-do list too long, make it manageable, and then just have some bonus stuff on there too, where it's like if you get all this stuff done and it's Wednesday or Thursday, start tackling some of these other projects that you might have to do next week, or just some more important things, or maybe just some of these fun projects on the side. But I would think that too, where it's like get these thoughts out of your brain and get them down on paper, because I don't know, it just gives you a sense of relief where you're like, and then when you start knocking those things off the list, then you also get another sense of relief where it's like, whew, it's Thursday and all I have to do is just study for my exam, go to class on Friday, and then hang out and get a workout in. That's all you got to do for the rest of the week. That's pretty sweet. And it kind of puts your minds at rest. So, and don't procrastinate to the best of your ability too. I think that adds stress, and then stress messes with your sleep. So, and then stress might even help kill your immune system a little bit, and next thing you know, you're at this vicious cycle of not sleeping, you're sick, and then it's like, are you sick because you're not sleeping, or you're not sleeping because you're sick, and all this other stuff's going on. So find a routine that works for you. I just told you what I tried to do. This was over years, probably years of trying different things. Zinc and magnesium seem to work. Hot tea, hot showers, reading a book, passing out. I had struggled big time in high school and then into college with sleeping, so I don't know if it was like it was like the brain was just on all the time. Like I would just worry about everything. I remember high school would be like, you're wrestling and you got to make weight, right? There's no way around it. So you're like 2.5, 3 pounds overweight. You got one day, one practice, whatever it may be to lose it. So you're up all night thinking about that. You're stressing about that. Then in college, you're like, maybe you did crappy on it. This is me talking now. Maybe you did crappy on an exam. Maybe I missed a class, or just ate a bunch of junk and feeling bad about it. Like that stuff would keep me up. So I had these like terrible stretch of like 4 to 6 years of just awful sleep. So to have like this routine now, I'm like super grateful for it, and it's just been helpful. And I still get up early, and I feel like I still could probably sleep a little bit later, but I'm thinking I'm getting enough sleep myself personally. So whatever time you have to wake up, backtrack, maybe start your routine 9 hours before that time that you have to wake up. And then hopefully over the course of the next 2 hours with the routine that you have, trying to unwind, hopefully you can fall asleep within those 2 hours so that you could at least get 7 hours, which is the minimum. Try to aim for more if you can, but there's a lot of time in the day that I think you could afford to rest and recover and get yourself a good night's rest. So that's what I think on that. Hopefully I covered that question. All right. Now the last thing that I want to talk about, this was another thing that Chris and I were just talking about before we got on here, patreon.com. So basically there's this website that you can put out a lot of content. We put the podcast on there. It's on YouTube. It's at a bunch of spots there. So basically with Patreon, it's like you want to get patrons, which are people that support what you're doing and what you do in the future. And they support you kind of by becoming a patron, and they become like a member to your site. And whatever you have set up, whether it's just, hey, donate to the Chris Fluck Podcast, it'll help keep this thing up and running, because there's expenses involved, microphones, cameras, 2 human beings trying to put this thing out, things of that nature. So that's one option that people do with that. Another option is we'll put out content, say, currently working on like, this program minimum where it's 20-minute a day workout. So that stuff's going to be on there. It's going to be free stuff. And then eventually some of the stuff, if you wanted more, or if you wanted access to other stuff, or you wanted this nutritional guidelines, maybe there's a membership site for that. So, you might have $5 a month might get you access to some other things. And then there's other ways too, where you could just do these like meet and greet things, video chats and all this other stuff. And it brought up, now I have 2 totally unrelated questions of fitness per se, and we're going to kind of tackle it here. And one with Patreon was they started kicking people off of there, and it was like a little bit of a weird situation for me, because I was hoping it was one of those sites that like just allowed you to put up a lot of content, whatever it may be. I don't plan on doing anything controversial on there, but they're trying to limit some people's free speech, which I think is a little bit odd. So I'm a little bit worried about the direction that's rolling in. So if you are going to the Patreon account, we're going to be pumping out some content here, but I'm a little bit worried about where we're going in the future with it. So 20 minutes, we're going with 20-minute workouts on there. All right. That was just to kind of clear up some issues we had with Patreon, people asking. 20-minute workouts are going to be on there, and then we're going to try to build off of that and start tackling some bigger issues there. But anyway, it was interesting stuff. Take a look at some of these articles out there. But Patreon, Patreon, that's an option there. The second thing that's totally unrelated, this one high school kid that comes in here likes to talk. He likes to talk about all kinds of random stuff. And yes, what do I think about Monsanto? So I guess Monsanto, I don't even know how to describe them. They're just this huge conglomerate. I think they just bought Bayer, the prescription drug company. So I think they have their hands in all kinds of stuff. But the big issue is like, engineering different products that people consume. So we're talking about like, different vegetables and all this other stuff being created. They're almost like laboratory projects and not actual food that is grown like organically. So basically, what do I think of Monsanto from the man that goes by oatmeal? I don't have a strong opinion on it. All I know about this with Monsanto, they got sued this year. I think a huge lawsuit they had to pay out. I might need to get that verified. I think it's over $100 million. Some man got cancer, I feel like, sued them because of all the stuff that they're putting on, all the different fertilizers and all that stuff that are going on their products are probably cancer causing. So when we're looking at the health of our country and we're seeing all these people with different illnesses and all that, is it coming from the foods we're eating? Chances are, yeah, I think it is. So when we look at this big conglomerate that's Monsanto, that's now getting in the prescription drug game, almost every American is consuming products from this company. It could be a little bit worrisome. So that's one thing. Second thing here, this Monsanto issue, we have a farm. I'm fortunate, if you don't know, to live on this awesome horse farm. We have about 10 acres. it's not really a resolution, but one plan for this year, 2019, was to just start growing my own products, just the things that I like to eat vegetable-wise. Like I just want to grow 80 stalks of asparagus and just eat that every day. But I'm sure there's going to be some other stuff in there. So when you're talking about Monsanto, and if you have a concern over the type of food that you're eating, you might want to start going to these local farmers markets, supporting some local guys, some local businesses. I think tends to help. So I was wrong here. My guy here, Chris, just told me, man, was awarded $289 million in a Monsanto lawsuit. Now, Chris, we're talking cancer. He got awarded that. So $289 million to this company is probably like a penny for most of us, but it's still a step in the right direction where maybe it'll set a precedent in the sense that maybe more people will come out here and eventually these losing lawsuit after lawsuit might affect what they're doing with their products. But, who knows? We're going to have to wait it out and see. But we're talking, so where to get your stuff. Like I was saying, I want to start growing my own stuff, but I'm fortunate to have that ability with what we got. If you don't have a big area, you can put in raised beds. My parents live in a small house, in a small town here in Hellertown. And in their backyard, small area, they just put some raised beds in there, and they started growing some small things. But if you don't even feel like putting in the time and energy for that, go to local farmers markets and support those people. Make sure they're not spraying their product, because you look at what's in Roundup and what's in some of these other killers, and it's like, wait a second, I'm going to consume this stuff. It's kind of mind blowing. So, I guess it's all about the bottom line for some people. Like some of these companies just want to make the most money. Some of these farms want to make the most money. They don't want weeds and all these other insects and stuff. Like we've had squash at our house that just got totally annihilated by some little worm thing. And it's like, that stinks. No squash for us this year. What could have fixed that? Some of these sprays, but we just didn't even want to mess with it. There's enough runoff and all this other stuff that happens that, we just took that as a loss and just focused on the other stuff that we had. But anyway, be mindful of what you buy. I think the organic products, some people, you got to be careful. Everything's worded weird now. People are trying to cash in on this whole organic type situation here, but just be mindful of what you buy. The cheapest product's probably not always the best product for you. That goes for everything. Same with beef and all that stuff. I think it might be worth it to maybe look into finding some local guys that might butcher, some meats sustainably. With obviously the animal dies, but with the best means possible. Just being thoughtful of all that. So that is what I was thinking. You go to the store, you go out to eat. Just use your head a little bit and don't eat the junk that is 9 cents for a week's worth of food, because it's probably not the best for you.
The FDA and food and government shutdown, how to stay healthy with the organic foods and the planting.
Well, what's going on there, man?
You can talk about it later.
All right. Dang, Fiegel just brought up some stuff here that I didn't even know about. So the government shutdown, obviously I knew about that, but the FDA shut down, and that's affecting whether or not some of these products.
Yeah, the inspectors.
So the inspectors are shut down.
They can't get out to inspect the food. Yeah,
wow. So now we got a government shutdown going on. We got breaking news here, to me anyway. Shutdown I knew about, but the FDA, all right, that's part that falls under it. But right, is that what you're saying? So FDA is not even getting out there to inspect stuff. So now it's telling you even more. So it's like, I don't want to say the old pro wrestler Stone Cold Steve Austin, don't trust anybody, but that's kind of the situation we're in sometimes. It's like, don't trust what you're reading. You're gonna have to do your own. You're gonna have to do your own due diligence here, or not what you're reading, but what people are telling you, whether or not this product was, how it was raised or how it was, farmed. Like, you're gonna have to find out. You're gonna have to dig deep a little bit here if you want to eat some good quality products, or if you don't care. You don't care. It's not a big deal. It's your life. You get to choose whatever you want to do with it. But I personally would recommend just be mindful of what you get now. Going off of that, so we had the Monsanto situation. We're also talking about, too, this was something that just came up, and I forgot. I didn't even write it down. Somebody's trying to lose some weight, all right? One spouse, one half of this relationship has this workout regimen that they've been working on for a long time. The other half, no working out, not a big part of their lifestyle. But now they're moving a lot more. They're doing their 10,000 steps. They're eating better. They're losing weight. They're getting some positive results. The individual that works out thinks because he works out, it's okay to maybe consume some products that you might not want to. Different pastas and breads and all that other stuff, whereas the other one doesn't want to do that. So that being said, how do you go about, this was the question that was asked, how do you go about bringing that up to one person if there's somebody that you know and they would probably trust your opinion? How do you bring it up to them to like, hey, you're gonna have to get on board and try to be a little bit more supportive with what you're doing because it's affecting the other person. So it's like you don't want to have to cook 2 meals, pasta for one person and then a salad with salmon for the other person. Why can't we just kind of cook one whole thing here? So this is navigating personal relationships that it's not easy, but you're going to kind of have to figure out a way to speak to the individual, all right? How do you do that? You're going to have to present it in a way that it's almost going to, I don't want to say you want to manipulate or trick somebody, but you want to present it in a way that's going to be helpful and beneficial to them too. So it's like one person's getting their food made for them. You know, why are you being so picky and so choosy with that? You know, you can't say that to them because then they're going to get on the defensive. So you got to kind of figure out that they need to put the other person first and not be so, you know, almost selfish to a certain extent. These are things you can't say to the individual. You can't call them selfish. You can't tell them this or that, but they need to change their routine. All right. So that's one thing there. So how do we do this thing here? I think you just do it with brutal honesty. I think you need to sit down and just be like, hey man, whether it's your brother, sister, uncle, dad, whatever, be like, hey man, we need some more help out of you. You get some more people. You almost hit them with an intervention style. Hey, I've been talking to this, that, and this person, that person. I was talking to them too. We're a little bit concerned here. You know, we want this individual to be as healthy and live as long as possible. And you're the main support system for this person. So let's get on the same page with it and let's try to see what we can do with it. Yeah, man, we talked about it. You know, it's a we situation and not an I situation. Chris just pointed this out to me. You know, I think we talked about this in a previous podcast. It's not, you know, it's just putting, it's just being a teammate. It's being a leader per se. You know, if you have discipline to do certain things in one area of life, you know, maybe you could make a small change in another area of life and have the same discipline that you portrayed here with what you're eating with food-wise. A lot of cardiovascular trainers, you know, or runners, they'll run a marathon and then eat Skittles and do all this other stuff, drink a beer, and whatever. And they think that just because they have this fitness regime that they could get away with eating whatever. But those decisions that they make affect other people. And so it's important to just kind of take a step back, almost maybe detach yourself from the situation and just see like, hey, maybe what I'm doing is actually negatively affecting people, and maybe make a change that way. So I think that's probably, you're going to have to get yourself out of the way. So how do you tell this to somebody? Depends on who you're talking to, I guess. It's going to be a tough conversation either way. But just present it in a way where you're not accusing them of anything. You don't want to put them on the defensive because then they might really, you know, set their ground and not even make any changes at all. So present it in a way, try to flank them, try to not come directly at them, come at them different angles, tell them you've been talking to some other people, tell them, you know, we're all a little bit worried about this or that, and then hopefully they might make the right decision. If they don't, then they don't, I guess. And I don't know, maybe you just kind of get a little tougher with your stance on it, but I don't know. That's kind of it on that front there. But support system's huge. We talked about in previous podcasts, being a teammate and all that stuff. It's just probably going to continually show up. And then the other thing is just building, you know, having these relationships and how to deal with different dynamics that different people have, different families have, and all that other stuff. So that question was actually kind of presented to me, and I'm still sorting out the way that I'm going to take the approach on how to talk to somebody about it. But whatever, it's all good, and we'll get to the bottom of it. So thanks to everybody that kind of contributed some of these questions. We touched on a lot of different things. I hope I answered everything in a pretty good way for you. Like I mentioned a little bit earlier, podcast is on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, Spotify. It's on YouTube. It's going to be on patreon.com as long as they don't take away my freedom of speech. I'm just kidding. And where else can we find it, man? That's it. It's going to be on Facebook, chrisfluckpodcast.com. It's going to be there. It's going to be the first thing you see when you open it up. Yeah, that's that. So again, guys, you want to support what we're doing here, you go to patreon.com. You can check out some of the content that we will be putting out. I'm a slow play guy, and it's taken me forever to get this going, but there's going to be some good stuff on there soon. Trust me on that. We're starting with this we're starting with 20-minute workouts, what to do every day. If you only got 20 minutes, I think everybody's got 20 minutes. That's going to be our first step right there. Come to the page, check it out. And if you want to support what we're doing here, you want to keep seeing this stuff here, if you want to see more projects from us, we got workout programs that I'd like to get out there on video. And that's going to take a little bit of support and a little bit of financial backing from people that might like this stuff. So, if you anything from $1, $5, $10, whatever, you go to patreon.com. I think it's /Chris Fluck. And you can support what we're doing there. There's two options. Donate what you can is an option. Second option is a personalized program with me where we meet up, we talk. You get access to a bunch of workouts. We figure out what's going to help you out the most. You're going to be held accountable every week with check-ins. You're going to get to talk to me every month. Program's getting reevaluated monthly, weekly chats, all the accountability stuff, and then just different steps in the process there to kind of get you going in the right direction. So that's the second option there. Obviously, that one's going to cost a little bit of money, but that's what you do there. If you want to support what we're doing here, man, and you want to hear more of this stuff, go to patreon.com. So hope you guys have a great day. See you in a few days. I got some new guests coming up this week. Peace, everybody.